So Danny is our winning volunteer. So Danny is young and fit, and he's a huge football fan.
I feel quite like Robocop here with all this kit on.
You're gonna look even funnier with have a mask on you. Don't forget you've got to spit in it, doesn't you? Just give me a thumbs up in your left hand if you're okay. There we go, good job. So we're ready to go. It's about 10 minutes before kickoff. So we're going to find the TV up and get the treats out. I think Luca's got 2 litres of pop, 25,000 cookies, millions of sweets. He's not going to sleep for about 6 months. But you're going to just relax, enjoy the football, just be yourself, okay?
Looking forward to this game, big game, Euro final. Yeah, support the Spain.
You said that twice.
Get the point.
Well, that's, yeah, you're definitely right.
Yes.
As we're about to kick off the first men's overseas final for England.
Smile on my face. I've been looking forward to this. England competing at the business end of major tournaments. Fingers crossed, I'll still be smiling at the end of the night. My heart rate has soared though. We're already at 72 beats per minute. Oh no! That was a little tense moment. Come on! Oh, come on!
Okay, so this is half time. Quite stressed, I think, Danny, at the moment. But 0-0.
Right, here we go. Second half. Quick heart rate check at 57 beats per minute. Looking forward to it. Oh, I just got a sneaky feeling tonight, and that's carrying me through. Oh, great. Okay, Spain came out on fire, 1-0 down. So much for my confident talk. 56 minutes into the game, and I feel on edge now. There's tension throughout my body. I feel on edge. England score, I'll tell you what, I've got my nerves of steel. Heart rate 57 beats per minute. Oh yeah. Couple of minutes to go. I don't know how I feel anymore. Well, I've done my last saliva test for the end of the match. That was a roller coaster, wasn't it? So I hope it kills you back into the equaliser. But yeah, I'm quite chilled about this. To be perfectly honest, I think Spain were the better team throughout the whole competition. I'm not too disappointed.
I'm actually really happy, yeah.
I'll sleep like a baby tonight, and the rest of the week is absolutely on a high already.
It is what it is, unfortunately.
So, bit of a stressful match then. Do you think that was good for you or bad for you?
Long periods of that, I doubt it. But 90 minutes, I can cope with that, and it's actually quite enjoyable.
Right, let's chat through the results of all that monitoring entertainingly. It's quite something we live in. Do you want to go through the results? Let's do mine first. What happened to my heart rate?
Well, as you mentioned, yours is still, you saw peaks of the heart
enough support within the party to replace President Biden after he withdrew from the race. As Harris likened Donald Trump to, as she put it, the predators and fraudsters she used to prosecute as California's Attorney General. Our North America editor Sarah Smith said she appeared unstoppable.
Although she had been saying very, very supportive things in public about Joe Biden, her campaign was pretty ready to go as soon as he said he was stepping aside. And she just started collecting the endorsements of so many of the party's most senior leaders. All the Democratic governors came in behind her. And the donors opened their wallets at the same time as well. $81 million coming in 24 hours.
Police chiefs have warned that at least 2 million women are victims of violence in England and Wales every year. A report by the National Police Chiefs Council said the situation amounted to a national emergency. Ukraine's foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba, is in Beijing to discuss how China could help end Russia's war on Ukraine. China has tried to position itself as a mediator in the conflict. Western governments accuse Beijing of enabling Russia's aggression. The Work and Pensions Secretary, Liz Kendall, announced plans today to give local authorities more power to help people find jobs. In her first major speech since Labour won the general election, she'll say the Conservatives spent 14 years focused on implementing benefits changes rather than increasing employment. Representatives of the main train drivers union, ASLEF, urged officials from the Department for Transport today for pay talks to try to resolve a 2-year-long dispute. ASLEF has voiced hope that the talks will be constructive. Andy Murray has confirmed he will retire from tennis after the Paris Olympics. In a post on social media, he said he was extremely proud to compete for Team GP one final time. BBC News.
In an Einstein screenshot celebrate Spike Lee's incendiary 1989 drama about simmering racial tension, Do the Right Thing. That's at 11 here on Radio 4. First though, it's time to join Woman's Hour with Ella McGovern.
Hello, you're very welcome to Woman's Hour. Well, as you might have been hearing, online influencers like Andrew Tate are radicalising boys into extreme misogyny. That is according to a new report out today outlining the scale of the issue and also what's needed to tackle it. We'll discuss. We'll also hear from Megan Davis, a whistleblowing lawyer turned novelist, on what prompted her to call out the company and asked her to commit fraud. And after 1 year in a row, we have the Vice Chancellor of Cambridge University, Deborah Prentice, on free speech on campus, on college funding, and also on research into alcohol use and abuse at universities. Plus, the historian and author Kate Lister wrote this. I firmly believe that anyone who turns up to a girls' lunch with their husband in tow should be arrested immediately. We'll speak to Kate about her pet peeve. What about that issue that she brings up? The cozy lunch or the night out with your close pals that is disrupted by a partner. Is it a sackable offence? Have you had that experience? Or maybe you've brought an outsider in. Maybe you are the outsider. I want to hear your thoughts. Send a few of them in to me before I speak to Kate. 84844 is the number to text on social media. We're at BBC Woman's Hour, or you can email us through our website 03700 100 444 or the WhatsApp. You disagree? Maybe you think for all situations. Do get in touch. 84844. Well, let me begin, however, with the first national analysis of the scale of violence against women and girls. It does make for grim reading this morning, I should say. Here are some of the figures that jump out from the National Police Chiefs Council report that was released a little earlier this morning. The number of reported offences against women has grown by 37% in the past 5 years. Crimes such as sexual assault, stalking and domestic violence now affect 1 in 12 women in England and Wales. The number of victims is estimated to be 2 million women each year. It has prompted police chiefs to call violence against women and girls a national emergency. Also included in the report are warnings against young men becoming radicalised by online influencers such as Andrew Tate. I was also interested to read that the Deputy Chief Constable Maggie Blythe said that officers who focused on violence against women and girls are now working with the counter-terrorism teams to look at the risk of young men being radicalised. With us, I have London Victims Commissioner Claire Waxman, and also Graham Golden, prevention expert who works with boys and young men to tackle misogyny. You're both very welcome this morning. Claire, let me begin with you. Can you take us through the threat areas that have been identified from the NPCC?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, first of all, just to say we really welcome this report today. We've been talking for many years about male violence against women and girls and the scale of it, so it's absolutely welcome to see this in the report. So the 5 threats are around rape and serious sexual offences, domestic abuse, stalking and harassment, child sex abuse and exploitation, and online and tech-enabled fraud. So these are the 5 threats, and it just coincides that today I published the first in-depth report in London on the police response to stalking. So our research today gives real insight into what's driving those behaviours and what we can do better to tackle it.
Because when I brought up these figures sometimes previously with politicians, they have said that there is more reporting taking place and that can be part of the figure. What would you respond?
Well, I mean, we have seen an increase in reporting. We have to acknowledge that. I think there's a better understanding of what constitutes war. We're not quite there in fully understanding. That's why I called for a national public awareness campaign on stalking, because we heard from so many victims and it took them a very long time to come forward because they didn't quite understand and identify that what they were experiencing was stalking. Especially in our research, we've seen young people more affected by the more serious offence of stalking, which is showing us that they're almost accepting a normalisation of behaviours, maybe because of their online visibility, that it's sort of accepted this stalking and this level of criminal behaviour is accepted within their life. So it's really something we need to look at and challenge. But I think while we're also seeing an increase is obviously we've got these new online drivers of misogyny. We talked about Andrew Tate and other influencers that are really, I think, impacting these harmful attitudes amongst young men, and that can result in stalking and other behaviours, and then it escalates into violence.
Well, let's talk about that in vogue, as you mentioned, is violence against women and girls. I was actually struck as well, just as you're talking, and I've noticed this.
Due to shame and stigma around stalking. So we have to make that clear as well, because obviously I'm here to represent all victims, but we do have this epidemic of male violence against women and girls that we really need to get on top of and get it right.
I've just noticed that language over the past few weeks, really, if I'm honest, when looking at these stories. Graham, let me turn to you. You've been on the programme before. You work with boys and young men to and being considered now part of the problem, people like Andrew Tate. I mean, how does watching that sort of content translate into a violent physical act, if you understand it?
Yeah, I think it's important we really recognise the risks. The media is the message and the messenger, and a very, very powerful one. And I think it's really important that we develop a sort of media literacy, I suppose, for young men, to be really aware. And we talk a lot about Andrew Tate and his influence. There's no doubt that man has an influence and needs to be addressed. But recent surveys suggest that the vast majority of our young men and young boys in this country actually don't support Andrew Tate. They don't support his views. So we've got to be careful in how we speak to our young men. And for me, if we focus on the 4 and 5, that was the research, 4 and 5 don't support Andrew Tate, then we run the risk of growing that 1 in 5. We run the risk of flipping it a little bit and running the risk that people, because we know from lots of research that young men often wrongly perceive what their friends, their peers, colleagues think around these topics. And for me, as somebody who's really passionate about bringing men into the conversation, because Claire's right, men's violence against women and girls, that's the narrative. We need to get men on the page, we need to get men in the room talking about these issues. So for me, we need to really talk about Andrew Tate, but we need to focus on the positive values, views, attitudes that exist, and give men the support. And that was the background to when we developed the Don't Be That Guy campaign in Scotland, was to really help young men see the support that they have, making it a little bit easier for them to speak up when they witness behaviours.
And that was it. So one guy would call out another guy if somebody was behaving inappropriately.
Yeah, but also using this phrase calling in as opposed to simply calling out. You know, calling out is scary. And we need to give young boys and men the tools to be able to have important conversations that hold their friends accountable, but in a supportive, non-judgmental way that brings them into the room and allows them to be curious about why they've been spoken to.
How do you do that, though? I'm just thinking, particularly, I don't know, a gang of 14-year-old boys, you know, your best friend, or girls for that matter, you know the way your best friend or your group of friends has so much influence over you.
Yeah. You know, for me, I'm a real believer in I used to say the positive. How do we build character? And what I mean by that, you know, in the work I do around the world around bystandership, one of the biggest motivators is a sense of responsibility. And it comes from two places, from your internal moral compass, and also it can be given. And for me, it's about really developing that moral compass as early as possible. You know, parents, carers, sports coaches, teachers, police officers, whoever, you know, when we develop that internal moral compass, then we run a chance of helping young boys and men when they see that harmful thing taking place in the schoolyard or in the workplace, or the back of the police van, for that matter, that they have that confidence and that courage to do something because it's coming from a place, that's wrong, I need to do something.
So that's if you're talking to the child specifically, but what about those others that you mentioned, the teachers, the parents, the sports coaches, whatever it might be? I mean, how can you get them involved in trying to grow this moral compass as you talk about? I mean, it's a huge feat.
It is, but then let's link it to the you know, the purpose of school is to learn. No learning will take place without relationships in place. So if we address this in schools, the stuff that Claire's passionate about, many other people are passionate about, if we address men's violence against women and girls, then we can improve learning. Not just for girls and women, but for boys and men as well. In sports teams, if we I was working with the Chicago Cubs a few years ago, the LA Dodgers, the elite athletes in baseball, and we were looking at issues off the field becoming issues on the field, performance, and in workplaces, you know, productivity. So if we really focus on building relationships in all of these settings, then we have that opportunity to really build a team. How do we you know, tackle that false consensus? Because just now a lot of young boys and men think they're in the minority. The reality is they're not. So unless we create a space, a meaningful conversation, and you know, accept that we're going to get some views coming back to us, but as long as we were able to hold them accountable and deal with them, we have a chance to change the narrative, I think.
I want to come back to you specifically on the issue of counter-terrorism, and Claire, I want to talk to you about this. The government has said they aim to have violence against women and girls in the next decade. It seems like also a huge goal, particularly with some of the figures that we're talking about today. They're also talking about using counter-terrorism strategy. So to stop, in a way, young boys, young men being radicalized. What do you think of that particular approach?
Yeah, so I think we're going to have to look at treating it like terrorism if we really want to tackle it and address it. So I very much welcome their approach. What we saw in our research is, again, we're seeing high-risk repeat offenders really going under the radar and not being identified properly,
sweat the small stuff. Really, build the knowledge, motivate our boys and men and society in general to act. Because just now we're playing a big game of whack-a-mole. We're waiting for big things to happen and dealing with policing is doing that, fire, society. That's terrorist response. That's whack-a-mole. We need to reduce promotes. We can do that by just creating conversation, building confidence in our young boys and our young men. Helping young people and women and men identify what's happening to them as abuse so they can deal with it quickly. That's prevention. If all we're going to do is respond after the incident, then it's too late. We have a victim, we have an offender, and all the other issues with them along with them.
What do you think that sometimes people don't realise they're a victim?
I think that's the case. Look at coercive control. Some young women and men, I suppose, as well. Before we do talk about male victims, they sometimes don't realise, and something that we can all do as a friend, a colleague, a teammate, is if we see something that we're not right, point it out to that friend, because that might be the first time somebody said something to them. Bystandership is just about speaking to harm doers and people who cause harm. It's about having the courage and the confidence and compassion to be able to speak to a friend who may be experiencing harm. And that intervention can be the first step on their journey of realisation, but also maybe leading a relationship.
Do you think having violence against women and girls in the next decade is feasible?
I think we should be thinking about making it better.
Better meaning?
Do no harm. Let's not make it worse. That was our philosophy in Glasgow, in Scotland, violence reduction. Are we ever going to prevent and reduce violence totally? That's the part of it. We make it better. If we are making it better, we keep doing what we're doing. If we're making it worse, we stop what we're doing and we do something else. Because I think just now I see so many programs coming in that, really are they making a difference? The ones that are making a difference are the ones that we just scale up. That's public health. If it works, scale it up more and more, rather than just bringing in new programs for this and that.
I'm interested what you say there, though. You don't seem to want to comment on whether having it is possible.
I think anything's possible with the determination and following the evidence and the science. I think the science is telling us how to work with our boys and men, but I don't think we're using the science and the evidence.
Okay, I've got
so we need to really get better at using the science, because if we do that, the work of Alan Berkowitz in America, social norms theory, that's what all his research tells us what to do, but we don't tend to do it.
So you feel
my fear is that we're ignoring the evidence and the science in this work.
That maybe they're not on that yet. Claire, what do you think? Feasible? Half the violence?
I think just picking up on Graham's point, obviously we need to be doing far better with this sort of public health approach to tackling war. So in the prevention space, exactly as Graham said, following the science, following what works, and making sure we scale that up and implement it. From my side, obviously, when someone does become a victim and come into the system needs to be much more effective at responding and protecting that victim, and an early intervention, because then you can disrupt that perpetrator's behaviour, especially in stalking. We've seen some really good signs from early intervention work with the NHS, really disrupting and reducing that reoffending stalkers. But you have to get in early. So that comes from awareness campaigns, people being aware that what they're experiencing, if it's stalking, domestic abuse, coercive control, coming in and reporting. But then the police and the wider criminal justice system needs to be working far more effectively, and unfortunately there's a lot of work still there.
We'll continue following it. London Victims Commissioner Claire Waxman, thank you very much, and Graham Golden, Leadership and Violence Prevention expert who works with boys and young men to tackle misogyny. Now, you might have heard me say that Listener Week is coming up next month, and it's your chance to discuss what you want to hear on air. So you can text Women's Hour 84844, social media, we're at BBC Women's Hour, or email us through our website. Some of you have got in touch this morning with us about my next item, about whether it's okay to bring a +1 to the lunch of your close mates. Here's Debbie in Abington. She says, as a lesbian, I would challenge the heteronormative assumptions here. Didn't mean to have any heteronormative assumptions, Debbie. I'm just talking about the close friends and when the outsider is brought in. Debbie says, if I had arranged to see friends of whatever gender who were my friends rather than couple friends, my partner wouldn't dream of coming along, and vice versa. For me, this is about maintaining healthy independence within an intimate relationship, and gender is a side issue. Here's another one. My daughter Clover made me a guest at her hen lunch 24 years ago. I was amazed as her father, but I became an honorary girlfriend for the lunch. So instead, he was the outsider brought in. 84844. I have a feeling I have a few things to say about this. I mean, the writer and academic, the academic and writer Kate Lister. This is the quote that you want, Kate, and I'll speak to you in just for a moment. I said it earlier, but I think it bears repeating. I firmly believe that anyone who turns up to a girls' lunch with their husband in tow should be arrested immediately. It was written in the iPaper, and Kate explaining that the presence of a partner alters the dynamic, and that friendships ought to be safe havens from romantic relationships. You know, could be mixed genders as we're talking about. Let me bring Kate in to go back to Women's Hour. Welcome, Kate.
So, thanks for asking me on.
Well, do you want to tell our listeners a little of your experience in case they haven't read your article?
Yes. So, this article came about when I was talking to a friend of mine who had been having a regular, what she called lunch with the girls. And suddenly one of these friends had started bringing a new partner with her, who had just sort of started turning up. I know I also want to challenge the heteronormative things around this, because it's not necessarily a heterosexual thing, but in this case it was. And she was just felt very awkward by the fact that there was suddenly a new partner there, and she didn't really know what to do about it, because she felt very like, am I being bad here? Like, he's not that he's a bad person, it's not that he's not nice to be around, but it's just disrupted the entire dynamic. And then I remembered a few years ago when I'd been working over in Liverpool, and I became friends with a woman in work, and we got on really, really well, and we arranged to meet up outside of work, and she kept bringing her husband, like every single time.
And did you say anything?
Well, this is the thing, is it, looking back, yeah, I should have just said, and what are you doing here? But that's a weird thing to say, isn't it?
Well, this is it, and we've had the conversations, I'm not going to lie, this morning in the office, and there are some that are more forthright about saying, what's he or she doing here, compared to others. But what is it at the nub of it? I think you alluded to it there, that the dynamic changes.
Dynamic changes whenever somebody brings in a new element. And I think that if that element is a romantic partner, then we've got a whole load of nuance going on that perhaps you were unprepared for. Now, I'm not talking about if you've arranged to meet up with a coupley friend. That's fine. I do that a lot. I'm meeting up with a coupley friend tomorrow. I'm talking about if somebody suddenly decides that their romantic partner is now their plus one for all social events. And for me, what kind of gets to the nub of it is, I didn't want to spend time with him. I didn't want him to see him for lunch or brunch or anything else. I wanted to see you. You are my friend.
Okay, let me read. The comments are coming in. Hold that thought. I bring my partner along to some things. I want my friends to know him, enjoy his company, and for them to get along. It's very important for me that they can all share time with me together. Not all the time, but how will they bond if not through shared hangouts with me?
True. It's a fair comment, but I'm afraid I might still have to have that person arrested. That's hyperbole. I wouldn't actually want to do that. Yeah, you've got to meet your friends' partners, because friends and partners, there's a whole load of tension and stuff that can go on there. But I think it's also really important that you prioritize your relationship with your friends. That we don't forget that those relationships need energy and time and effort and focus as well. And for me, because maybe it's particularly important to me because I'm a single woman and I'm child free, and I love that for me. I had a great time. But my friends and my relationship with them are so important, and I want to invest in that. And if suddenly they have a plus one with them all the time, I feel that I can't quite be myself. I'm not quite getting that same relationship dynamic that I wanted.
84844 if you want to get in touch. Why do you think said friends that we've mentioned do bring along the plus one? I was thinking about this. I was like, maybe they're time poor, you know, maybe they have other responsibilities, maybe this is the one night out in, I don't know, a number of weeks.
There are lots of reasons why they do it, and I know that I'm being very extreme and severe in what I'm saying, and I am very sensitive to that there are lots of nuances going on here. I did kind of ask my friend in Liverpool why their husband was always there, and the answer that I got was that he doesn't have any friends. He struggles to make friends himself, so they socialise together. And then I felt kind of bad. I thought, well, maybe I'm being mean here then. Maybe this is my fault. Which again, I think is one of the reasons why it can be quite hard to vocalize this stuff. So that was the reason that she gave. And in the comments to the I Need article, people were also saying things like, sometimes their partner is also their carer, so they bring them to social events. And I think I should say straight away, I'm not talking about that. That's not what we're talking about. It's the sudden appearance of a romantic partner that you are unfamiliar with that is suddenly now within your friendship dynamic.
I think Sarah on Twitter is in alignment with you, Kate. She says it's better to bring along a dog. Dog's okay?
Yes, Sarah. Yes, dogs are always okay. That's, yeah.
Does it also come into whether you have a relationship with that partner?
I think so. I mean, there's a whole thing, isn't there, about your friend's partners
Yes,
and how is
that's
a
another
friend,
item.
that's a whole item, isn't it? Like, what do you do when you don't like a friend? Do you like them, or how do you get to know them? How do you suddenly account for the fact that they're a couple? But it's I still go back to this thing of like that you have to remember that the friendship is really important as well, and you've got to pour time and energy into that. Your partner might be lovely, they might be absolutely amazing and fabulous, and we can spend time with them and all that stuff, but don't forget your friends.
What is it about women or close mates getting together, not to be heteronormative? It can be women getting together, maybe they have a female partner, or maybe you have a very close male friend that's there. You don't want them bringing their partner either. What is it about that particular space?
You know, there has been research done on this, so it's not just me griping about it. There was a research paper in 2010 in the Handbook of Gender Research and Psychology about how group dynamics shift when you're in a co-ed space. And typically what happens is that women become quieter and more shy about what they're saying, and the men in the room will become more authoritative, they will take charge of the conversations. So the research does bear this out, that the dynamics do shift. Now, the lesbians and the gays and the bisexuals, they can tell us how this works within their dynamic groups. I'm sure that inviting anybody new into a space has an impact, but there is research that shows that gender does play a part in it.
Right, floodgates have just opened. Are you ready?
Ready, let's do it.
Right, me and my friends play golf. It's a great escape, but my friend has started bringing his girlfriend. She's nice, but the dynamic has changed. My friend distances himself from us and doesn't join the banter as much as he has to be on his best behaviour. Here's another. I always ask if I can bring the romantic partner du jour for a party or dinner, but girls or a men's get-together, I suppose women wouldn't call themselves girls, whatever, women or a men's get-together is sacrosanct. So, there you go. Oh gosh, they're coming in so fast that I actually have to jump ahead. If prearranged, it's okay. Otherwise, I view it as a red flag.
Yes, I'd agree with that. Prearranged, fine.
Another one. My straight male partner was invited to my gay friend's birthday party at a gay club. He enjoyed it for a few hours. All my gay friends love him, but he was respectful enough to leave me and them dancing when it got too much. Good morning. Maybe you need to think about controlling behaviour if a male partner starts coming to a girl's lunch. That's from Kate.
I think it is a red flag, you know. I think that I'm being quite light-hearted with what I'm saying, but I think that if you can't socialise without your partner, or if your partner is insisting on going with you to socialise with your friends, I would be quite alarmed by that.
And there's another couple coming in along those lines as well. Looking at a partner, it was a red flag, insisted on coming to every event that they had with work colleagues or friends. Another, what sort of man would want to go to lunch with a bunch of women? I can see you're laughing, Kate.
Sorry, that tickled me.
Another one, what about cats?
You can get a cat to come to a lunch. I have huge respect for you, and you are always welcome to socialise.
Well, obviously, 84844, and I'll speak to you with that. You must want a huge response to this, then, didn't you?
I did, yes. It's a proper, like, because everybody's got something they want to say about it, ranging from the people like, no, time with your friends, absolutely sacrosanct, through to other people, probably the people that are bringing their partners to social events, going, oh, well, maybe I just wanted to be nice, I wanted to socialise.
I'll tell you something, Kate, I don't think anyone is ever going to do that to you again.
I think my friendship pool might have got significantly smaller after this.
So great to have you on, Kate Lister. She's written the article in the Ireland. Oh my goodness. Continue to come in. It's extremely annoying when friends insist on bringing their partners to everything. I'm friends with them, not their partner. Lovely to see them, but it means the dynamic is instantly different. I'm concerned for those people that their partners start to become a core part of their identity. Ooh, all about the codependence and whatnot. I'm going to leave it for there, Kate. I'm going to keep an eye on the comments that are coming in. 84844. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Lots of food for thought, obviously something that tickles you. If there's something that you'd like to debate on the program, maybe Kate has got your creative juices flowing, or there's something like that's my pet peeve it has triggered. Something that really annoys your friends, family, or work colleagues, let us know. Listener Week is coming up next month. 84844 on social media at BBC Women's Hour. Email us through our website. We also put a little post up on Instagram. Yesterday. Thank you very much for them. I enjoyed reading them, and I'm very much looking forward to getting some of them on. Now, if you saw something suspicious taking place, would you speak out? Or would you look the other way? What if there was big sums of money offered to become involved in the wrongdoing? Well, it's the dilemma that's posed in a new novel, Bay of Thieves. It's something that happened to the book's author. I spoke to her earlier. Her name is Megan Davis. She's a lawyer turned author. The novel Bay of Thieves follows two women, Vanessa and Kate, that are lawyers who get sucked into a glamorous but dangerous world of financial crime and corruption, spanning London all the way to London. I started by asking Megan how she became a whistleblower.
I was working as a lawyer in an investment firm, and I was essentially asked to commit fraud, to correct something that had been a mistake. Initially, I refused to do that because pressure was building, and then I was sort of enticed to do it. I was a financial executive. I refused to do that as well, and things became increasingly tense in the firm. I then, became aware that it was going ahead when I was junior members of sort of being dragged into it as well. And so then I was sort of mixed with knowledge of this, and as well as saw other people sort of floundering around wondering what to do. So I realized I had to act and do something to stop it.
So you were being asked basically to falsify or create documents, which is really interesting because reading your book Bay of Thieves, the characters go through something very, very similar. You said that you were watching other people being pulled into it. Did you ever think about doing what they wanted you to do?
Well, yes, I did actually. About halfway through, when I was offered the money, I was actually said, what was said to me was, you can make this very much worth your while. And it was very strange because I'd never considered that, but all of a sudden the sum of money popped into my head, and I considered it, probably not because of the money at that point, but because the pressure had built, so it just became like the easiest thing to do. And I think, often with financial crime, people think it's a difficult thing, but it's often, the easiest thing to do. It's very easy to bribe someone.
Easy to bribe someone, easy to carry out that actual work. I mean, in the sense, thinking that you might be booked.
Yeah, it would have been very easy to do, very easy to actually carry out the fraud. I think it could have come out later, which is why they wanted me to do it and didn't want to do it themselves. So they wanted a fall guy. But frankly, at that time, just getting it out of the way and doing it felt like the easiest thing to do. I didn't really think of the consequences too much. I was so worried, but that was when it struck me that this kind of thing is so easy to do.
So that was if you were going to go down that path, but you didn't. You decided not to and blow the whistle. What was the catalyst for that, if there was one?
The catalyst was other people being dragged into it that were more junior than me, that came to me and asked me what was going on. I could see that they were confused, and I thought, well, I can't sit by and let this happen for my own purposes as well. I mean, I was fixed with knowledge of it. I felt culpable. I felt like I would be liable if it went ahead and I knew about it.
But you then blew the whistle, left the company. My understanding is that your legal case with them was settled without going to court. But it did last over a year, and I'm wondering what that time was like.
yeah, it was a very difficult time when I blew the whistle.